Journo, thank you very much for joining DW here at the Munich Security Conference. Now, you're a former senior colonel in China's military in the PLA. You're a member of the Chinese delegation here, and we've heard from Wang Yi, China's top diplomat, making a speech here, a very impactful speech, certainly. Now, he spoke, let's pick up on one thing he spoke about, the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. He said these are cornerstones of the international system. Now, I just want to be clear. I mean, should we understand that as a criticism then of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which was, of course, a breach of Ukraine's territorial integrity?
Well, China as a country that is not fully reunited certainly is more concerned with this issue of sovereignty. So we understand how sovereignty matters really, be it in China or in the rest of the world. Talking about this war, I'm sure Mr. Wang Yi is referring to the war in Ukraine, and clearly I believe this is a violation of sovereignty of one country by one country of another. Yeah, this is clear. But I think China's thoughts on this issue just goes a bit further to the root causes, because if you talk about a murder, the investigation always starts from murder, but actually the murder was planned a long time ago. So because we have some sympathies with Russia in knowing that the fundamental reason for Russia to take this kind of military action is because of NATO expansion.
But I'm still curious because, it's still leaving it on the level of implication rather than explicit language. Whereas China is very clearly using explicit language with respect to its criticism of the United States. So why is it holding back on Russia but not holding back on America?
Well, I think there is a difference, indeed, in our attitude toward the United States and toward Russia, because we were taken differently by these two countries as well. We were taken by the primary competitor of the United States, and we were taken as the strategic partners by by Russia. So therefore, the attitude of these two countries are different toward China, and we have to consider China is also Russia's largest neighbor, and vice versa. So in this regard, we have to make sure that our relationship with Russia is a good one, a sustainable one. When you look at the China-Russia relationship, do not always judge it, from the eyes of a third person. This relationship has to be put into context of bilateral relationship. But if you look at this from the bilateral relationship, then you would understand, we really need to develop this relationship with Russia because we're not just a neighbor, because both of us have all what we need from each other. But so this kind of a good relationship should be a good and a normal state-to-state relationship. Yeah, it should not be, put on the test by other countries on something that China has nothing to do. Being a Chinese, I sometimes feel flattered in that nowadays everything seems to be related to China. Even about this war in the heart of Europe, which has nothing to do with China. But people would still say, which side do you want to take? And all your questions seems to be suggesting indirectly that China should have a clear-cut position. And this actually is a kind of asking China to take a side. And then we have this question whether China would be a serious mediator. This is what I learned at this conference. Could China just, persuade Russia, making use of influence about, what Russia should not do, so on and so forth. And then it even give people some imagination as to how a similar conflict might occur in Taiwan Strait. Yeah, so all these things, what I mentioned is, because this war has nothing to do with China, but still it invites so many people's imagination or discussion about the role of China. In one aspect, this is good. This shows that China is really powerful, China is really important, and China also wants to play this role in a responsible manner.
So Wang Yi did say that China will soon present a peace proposal. So it is becoming, evidently is prepared to become quite active in the search for a political solution. What can we expect in that proposal?
Well, I'm not so sure what are the details of his proposal, but as a Chinese, I believe I share the same feeling that this war is not in China's interest. If it can stop, immediately, we would be most happy, but we know it won't stop. Probably not at all this year. And so how long this war will last, nobody knows. But I don't believe right now we are seeing, de-escalation of the situation. We're actually seeing escalation of the situation. Because from all what I heard at the Munich Security Conference, the West is adamantly, supportive of Ukraine, and they have expressed that they would support Ukraine by all means. So, but on the other hand, Russia could not be defeated. So people talk about defeating Russia, but in what context? Russia will still remain a large country with the largest nuclear arsenal. So I see the stalemate. Putin will not win the war, but he can hardly lose the war. So what would happen? Then it is a miserable situation.
Do you think Putin might use nuclear weapons?
I don't know, but I worry about this. So that is why I'm the first Chinese who talk he should not use nuclear weapon.
And so, excuse me, but so when Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, was in Beijing, he spoke to Xi Jinping, and there was a statement that came out also from Xi Jinping saying that, criticizing nuclear threats even. Is China prepared to use influence on Moscow to at least not go to that grim step of using nuclear weapons?
I think China has already played a pivotal role in dissuading any possible use of nuclear weapons by Russia. I'm only a former PLA officer. I wrote this opinion. I know the relationship between our two countries are good, but this is about humanity. Nuclear weapons should not be used in any cases. So I wrote it. But I was most happy that my president talked about it in a week's time. And German Chancellor Scholz said that even for this agreement, his visit to China was worthwhile. And my president, in his bilateral talks with President Biden at G20, reiterated China's clear-cut position about no use of nuclear weapon. And this is not only China's position, this is Russia's own promise. Yeah, because in a joint statement by 5 nuclear weapon states, they have made a joint statement that a nuclear war cannot be won, so therefore it should not be fought. This is Russia's own promise.
Now, you mentioned the prospect of a potential conflict in the Taiwan Strait.